Chances are, many of the people sitting in this room took the SAT at one point during their high school years. What emotions did you associate with the SAT? Were they positive? Most likely, you associate negativity with the SAT. All those hours spent studying, buying special books, and maybe even taking some SAT prep classes. For what? A 3-hour test? Why should we put so much emphasis on one test? Today, my team is proposing that the SAT should be eliminated from the college application process because it causes stress among the students. Certain groups are being affected by the test because of bias, and the elimination of the SAT would create an equal environment in college admissions. I will start off with my first claim, which states that the SAT causes stress among the students. Since there is so much emphasis put on one test, many students worry over the results of the test. This is a quote by Alexandra Jiang, who was a high school junior at the time. There's a sort of this fear. What if they scored a test wrong? You may think that this is just a needless worry, but there is a basis to this fear. For about 4,000 students taking the SAT in October of 2006, this fear was a reality. Admission officials said that some students had been affected by as much as 130 points. Although these points may seem pretty minor, in response to this incident, Jacqueline Nielsen, Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid of the New York Institute of Technology, said, for some, this means a scholarship adjustment. For some, it means admissions to a more selective program within the school. Another negative effect, which is caused by the SAT, is the amount of stress caused by worrying over one test. This stress can compel students to cheat in order to do well on the SATs. In the fall of 2011, Long Island prosecutors accused 13 students from 5 schools of accepting payment or paying others to take the SAT and ACT between 2008 and 2011. Students are so compelled to do well on the SATs that they are willing to pay others money to take the test for them in order to ensure that they can have the scores to be accepted into the college of their choice. In a quote by Nicholas Mills, a specialist at CNN, the Long Island testing scandal reflects the extent to which high school students across the country are responding to what their teachers and colleagues are telling them will bring success. They are acting on the premise that in the race to gain admission to the nation's most prestigious schools, getting a high score on the ACT or College Board test is equivalent to winning the lottery. One test is too much stress on a student because it places too much emphasis on its results. My second claim is that certain groups are being affected by the SAT because of bias. The SAT discriminates against minorities. In a quote by Scott Janchik of Inside Higher Ed, the existence of racial patterns on SAT scores is hardly new. The average score on the reading part of the SAT was 429 for black students, 99 points behind the average for white students. And while white students' scores were flat, the average score for black students fell by 1. This bias makes it hard for minorities to score well on the SATs. Some colleges even acknowledge this data, as Thomas Espenshade and Alexandria Ranford show in their study of race and class in college admissions in their book, No Longer Separate, Not Yet Equal. Selective colleges give blacks a 310-point bonus and Hispanics a 130-point bonus on SAT in order to achieve a measure of diversity. But that practice does not change colleges' overall reliance on the SAT as a guide to admissions. Another reason why the test is biased is because it rewards students who come from a family with a higher income. Chang Yoon Chung, a statistical programmer, and Thomas J. Espenshade, a sociology professor, both at Princeton University, co-authored a paper in which they cited a study that examined national SAT data from the late 1990s. That study broke applicants into 3 socio-economic classes. They found that 29% of students from the highest social class scored above 1,400 on the SAT, compared to 24% of students from the 24% of middle class students and 14% of lower class students. Turning that pyramid on its head, the study found that those students from lower social classes were more likely to have earned a a top high school GPA. In a quote by Charles Murray, a writer for The American, the short answer is that the image of the SAT has done a 180-degree turn. No longer seen as a compensating resource for the image of the seen as a compensating resource for the unprivileged, it has become a corrosive symbol of privilege. Back when kids just got a good night's sleep and took the SAT. Back when kids just got a good night's sleep and took the SAT, it was a leveler that helped you find the diamond in the rough. Lawrence University's Dean of Admissions told the New York Times recently, now that most of the grade scores are fluent kids with lots of preparation, it just increases the gap between the haves and have-nots. My third claim is that the elimination of the SAT would create an equal environment in college admissions. About 280 of the nation's 2,083 four-year colleges and universities made the SAT optional for some or all applicants. A handful of prestigious schools, including Franklin and Marshall and Mount Holyoke, have joined their ranks since the early 90s and say they aren't admitting idiots as a result. These colleges have shown that there is no need for the SAT when evaluating college applications. Even USC has considered dropping the SAT requirement. In 2001, Richard Atkinson, a psychologist who was president of the University of California at the time, suggested something radical: scrap the SAT. Richard Atkinson says the test throws kids into months of practicing word games and math riddles at the expense of studying chemistry or poetry. He wants to make the SATs an optional part of the application for all 90,000 kids who want to go to USC each year. The SATs have acquired a mystique that's clearly not warranted, he proclaims. Who knows what they measure? Those of us who want to stick a number 2 pencil in our eye while puzzling the meaning of mendacious give the game a cheer. When Atkinson began attacking the SAT, college administrators across the U.S. reopened old fights about the SAT and started new ones. President John Peters of North Illinois University says the reaction of the hundreds of college officials to the speech was extremely positive. He plans to suggest a review of his school's standardized test requirements at the next faculty meeting. These statements have shown that the system still works without the use of the SAT. Without the focus on the SAT scores, colleges can turn their attention towards other areas, such as the students' extracurricular activities or their actions within the community. In conclusion, by eliminating the SAT, we would be able to give a stress-free environment for the students, stop the bias against certain groups which is caused by the SAT, and create a more equal environment within the field of college administration. Thank you, sir.